Welcome to MyMacDLife, and powered by the Support Sight Foundation. This podcast is about macular degeneration and the devastating impact it has on millions of people and their families every single day, 365 days a year. Our mission is simple: to bring hope, optimism, perspective, and education to our listeners. So tune in, buckle up, and put your listening ears on. Here are your hosts, Don Prahl and Shawn Doyle.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to MyMacDLife. I'm your co-host, Shawn Doyle, professional speaker, trainer, and book author, and I'm here today with my co-host, the lovely and talented, the amazing, the incredible, the irreplaceable Don Prahl, the founder and executive director of the Support Sight Foundation, and a visionary. Hey, Don.
Hey, Shawn. Hi, everyone. We're happy you've joined us. We're excited to bring you some great information, education, and inspiration. We really want to make a difference in the life of people who are suffering with MACD, and we call it MyMacDLife.
And Don, one other thing.
What's that, Shawn?
We're going to have fun.
Hey, Shawn, what are we rolling with today?
Well, Don, we're rolling with it. You know what I'm saying? You feel me, Don? You feel me?
Yeah, I feel you, babe.
We got Dan Roberts, and Dan Roberts is a legend. He's just such an interesting guy, and he has a lot of interesting stories to tell and about what he's doing to really help people worldwide with that are suffering from MACD. Also, our friends from Vispera will be here yet again to talk about some remarkable assistive technology. And guess what else we're going to do today, Don? Hey, care to guess?
No, tell me, Shawn.
We're going to have some fun.
Oh, you know it. That's the name of the game. I'm excited to have folks listen to Dan Roberts' story. I know him well. It's inspiring. I'll just put it at that. I don't want to do a spoiler because people are going to stay with us and hear from Dan himself.
So let's start the inspiration now.
Let's go. Support for today's MyMacDLife podcast comes from Healthy Vision Association, Novartis, Vispero, Centric Bank, and Hinkelstein and Associates.
Hey, Don, you know, there was something I was thinking about this week. So I got to throw you a curveball. This is going to come in low, inside, and twist right when it comes over the plate. So you ready?
Sure.
So here's a question I've been getting so much. And Don, as you know, I'm a motivational speaker and a book author, and I really focus a lot on positivity and motivation, right?
Yep.
So here's a question everybody's asking me. Right now, we're living in a tremendous adversity in our country with COVID, and not just in our country, but across the world. If you turn on a news channel, bad idea, or go to a website, bad idea, featuring news, it's a recipe for depression. So here's what people ask me all the time. Shawn Doyle, as a motivational speaker, how in the world can you say to be motivated and to be happy during all this adversity? So I was thinking about this today it's the same thing with having MACD, suffering through adversity. So my question to you, my esteemed co-host, is how do you stay motivated during adversity, whether it's MACD adversity, whether it's the world we live in right now adversity, any type of adversity people face? How do we stay motivated during adversity?
Well, Shawn, apropos, for all the reasons.
There's the word for today's show, apropos.
There you go.
It's apropos. So what do you mean by apropos?
Apropos in all the things you said above without me repeating all that. I think people get it. You know, This is what we're living with. This is where we're at. And the good news is we're all kind of in this together.
Okay.
In terms of, macular degeneration.
It's another form of adversity, right? I mean, it's another serious adversity that someone in their family is going to face. How do we stay motivated and stay positive through all that?
Well, I think it's extremely challenging, and it really depends on attitude. And I can tell you that in my relationships that I have with folks who are living with this adversity of losing their sight, attitude is really the number one thing, if you will, that comes up.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. Yeah. So how do we maintain our attitude, or how do we do that positive attitude thing?
Well, you're kind of the expert in that. And so I'm going to flip it back to you and your curveball.
Well, the ball just came right back around to me. How did that happen?
Not going to strike out. No, I want to add, and then, just to keep it short, first of all, I'd like to hear from our listeners. on how they feel about attitude. But I want to say this in response. I've heard so many unbelievable stories from people about their attitude and how it changes over time. And, I'm going to pick up on that word you're using to maintain. I don't think we can really maintain anything unless we work really hard at it.
Absolutely.
But again, we have to have it first to maintain it. So I think attitude is that from I'm not going to let this disease stop me, and I can do anything I want, and I'm going to figure it out, to I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to give in to the depression, to the sadness.
I love that.
Yep. And there almost is this refusal, if you will.
Like not letting it win.
That's right.
I'm going to win. It's not going to win.
Well, a very good friend of mine once said, who, by the way, has macular degeneration, he actually has Stargardt's, which is juvenile macular degeneration, and was diagnosed with it at age 9. And he told me once that he likes to remind people when he speaks with them, because this is what got him through it, is you're not going to let a little old disease in your eye take over your life. And don't stand for it.
Like you give it the power to take over your life.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, my suggestion would be, when people ask me this question all the time, is a very simple exercise is to sit down and do a gratitude list or a joy list. So there's 2 different lists. One is gratitude. You just write down all the things you're thankful for. Okay, I have MacD, but I'm so happy that I have a wonderful family. I'm so happy that I have a great spouse. I'm so happy that I have a job. I'm so happy that I have a home. I have a roof over my head. I have the rest of me is very healthy. So it's just making a list of the things that you're grateful for. And the joy list is just writing down a list of things that bring you joy. And if you're feeling a bit down, you pick one item from that list and say, well, today I'm going to listen to Tchaikovsky because I love listening to symphony music, or I'm going to, listen to my favorite book, or I'm going to call my best friend, or whatever it is that brings you joy. So I think those are 2 things you can do. And I agree with you, Dawn, that motivation is not an event, it's a process, and we have to work on it every day. So what can you do on a daily activity to tap into that gratitude list or to tap into that joy list to bring you joy? So I think it's very important to fight the good fight. And if you do that, you certainly would be more motivated, inspired, and positive. And that's what this show really, MyMacDLife, is all about. Right, Dawn? You got it, Shawn. So for ideas on how to create your own joy list, go to MyMacDLife.org. Dawn, we interviewed Dan Roberts for the show, and I just found him so fascinating. Shawn, you can't use that word anymore. Remember, you're banned from that word. I do say fascinating a lot. I'm fascinated by the fact that I say fascinated a lot. So interesting, so scintillating. I could talk to the guy for 2 hours. It really was such an interesting interview. You say that about everybody. You're loving this, aren't you? I do love this. And it's interesting because I have a term for this. It's called intellectual curiosity. And I'm puzzled by the fact that sometimes people aren't intellectually curious. So I don't know why people would find anything boring, because there's just so much to learn in this life. So to MacDLife, you and I are intellectually curious about everything, right? So I just don't understand why people would not be intellectually curious about things. Well, I think, your point here is my takeaway from what you're saying is that you are learning more and more about the subject, macular degeneration, and each time that you speak with not just me, but our wonderful guests and experts and people who are living this life with macular degeneration, it's really piqued your intellectual curiosity. Also, it's hard to say, which is probably why people don't do it that much. That's right. Kind of like macular degeneration, right? That's why we say MacD, because I think maybe we just call it IC. I got my IC. Right. Curiosity. So, but I'm proud of you. I'm glad. Thank you. That you're learning more and more, and that it shows that you really do care, obviously. And of course you do, because this is what we're doing to help people and for them to learn more about living with the disease, how the disease works, stories of people just like them who are struggling with losing their vision, and they're not alone. There's millions and millions of people out there, and their caregivers and families. Exactly. And so we got a great guest today on the show, Dan Roberts, who's the founder of MD Support, a book author, and has an amazing life story about how losing his central vision affected his life. And so I think our listeners are going to be really fascinated. But here's what I think is so great. He gives a lot of tools and tips and techniques and ideas that people can apply to their life today who are suffering from macular degeneration or their families. So I think our listeners will find this interview to be really helpful in giving lots of great ideas about how to live the MacD life.
And I also love that guy. You gotta love him. Yep.
Well, Dan Roberts, welcome to My MacD Life.
Thank you, Shawn. Good to be here.
So happy to have you here. I wanted our listeners just to know a little bit more about you. So Dan Roberts, MME, is the editor-in-chief of Living Well with Low Vision, the founding director of MD Support, and founding director of the International Low Vision Support Group. And he retired from a half century as a teacher and an author and a composer and a theatrical director and musician. He now dedicates himself full-time to helping other people learn about and live with low vision. And because of his own need for support, he founded the MD Support in 1995, and he's since become a leading patient advocate, lobbyist, industry consultant, advisor, and low vision educator. And Dan, you're so fascinating. I think we could talk to you for a couple of hours.
Wow, I sound like quite a guy, don't I?
You sound like a great guy. So let's go ahead and get started. So Dan, it's obvious to me that you really have dedicated your life to helping people all over the world who have macular degeneration, or as we call it on the show, MacD. And you've helped people learn to live with low vision. But my question is, what got you started on this journey? What got you into this line of this cause? What got you into it?
Well, it was my vision that caused.
Oh, really?
Yes, I was a school teacher, a high school teacher, and theater director, and did all those things. You know, everything that I planned on in my life required vision, of course. Except being a musician, I have no trouble playing the piano still, so that's a blessing.
Wow,
but
that is a blessing.
Yeah, I started noticing things disappearing in my vision and decided to go see what it was all about, and found out that I was going to be losing my central vision in the next few, and that was in 1994.
1994, wow.
So I panicked, which I preach now to not do. That's the last thing a person wants to do. Whenever there's a death in the family, the first thing you do is sit down and think about what you're going to do next. You don't panic.
Right.
That's the same thing happens with vision loss. It turned out I had plenty of time to think about it. It's a progressive disease, and it's still progressing after 25 years, and so it's very slow. But I panicked and quit my job at the high school. I had 23 years teaching, and so I got retirement. And I quit my job at the church. I was a music minister and organist at the church. And I couldn't play in the dark, and there were a lot of services that were in candlelight and that kind of thing. So that I figured, well, I'm no good there, so I quit that. And then decided to, of course, I couldn't direct theater anymore because that required being backstage in the dark and going back and forth between backstage and bright lights in your eyes.
Yeah.
So I said, nope, this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to quit that too. So I figured, okay, I'll pick up my accordion again and get better at the accordion and buy myself a monkey and go out and sit on the street corner and make some money. That's how I'll make a living. And well, I don't like monkeys. So
You probably don't like accordions too much either. I'm just guessing.
Nobody likes accordions.
You don't like accordions. I'm sure we'll get some letters about that one, Dan, but that's okay.
Well, I wasn't a bad accordionist. I didn't mind it so much, but it was the other people. So that and the monkey decided I would try to think of something else to do. So I spent a year just sitting on the front porch and thinking my life was over and being tearful about the whole thing. And
of course,
I'm not that kind of guy usually, but I just went into depression. Finally, my wife said, there's this thing called the internet out there. Why don't you learn how to use it? And she said, we'll buy you a computer. And so I bought a computer and found a little group of people, about 12 people that had the same problem I did. It was a little email discussion group. That was the original Facebook, I believe.
Yeah, email discussion group.
Yeah, and it's still going. I ended up owning it, took it over from the guy who didn't want to do it anymore. And now there's over 400 people there.
Wow.
So that grew, and that's quite a community, and that's kind of what started it all. We all shared our experiences and our information, and then I decided to put that information on a website because I heard those things were pretty handy, and so I didn't know what they were or how to do it. My first website was a giant JPEG. I thought that's how you did it, I mean, I spent hours working on this artwork, had it all designed, and then uploaded it as a JPEG. And it took an eternity to download. And it had very high tech. And my nephew, who's a teenager and much smarter than I was, said, "No, that's not how you do websites." And so he taught me how to do it first, and went from there. And now it gets over 7,000 hits a month.
Wow!
And it actually works. It has links and everything. So.
And did that then become the MD support site? Is that
became? Yes, it did. The people on the little group that I had started, that I had taken over, needed a place where they could look up information, and me not having to repeat it every time, because ended up being their teacher. And since I used to be a teacher, well, that felt pretty good. So I just learned, and I'm also very obsessive. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to learn everything possible about macular degeneration.
Wow.
And then I'm going to teach it to everybody else. And my wife kind of inspired me to do that. So I thank her for pushing me in that direction. And so now we have, like I said, about 7,000 people a month come to the website for that same information. And if you go there, you'll see articles that I published in 1997.
Wow.
I'm obsessive, like I said. I keep everything. And I thought, well, this is a great archive of the history of the research and developments. And so that's what it turned into. And then Prevent Blindness, the organization in Chicago that's over 100 years old, said, how would you like to come work for us? And so I ended up being editor-in-chief.
Fantastic.
Moved all my stuff over there. So now that's where it all is housed. And I thought that'd be a good idea because I'm in my mid-70s and I'm not going to be around forever. So now they've got it and I still manage it, but it'll outlast me. And I thought that worked out pretty well for both of us.
Well, what a great legacy for you.
Yeah, well, I never thought I'd need a legacy, just teach school, retire, and go fishing.
Right.
But it didn't turn out that way.
I guess my question, Dan, is kind of interesting because, I'm a motivational speaker and a book author, and I noticed that there's some people when they face adversity, they don't really do anything about it. But it sounds to me like at a certain point, you decided to, rather than just, sitting and feeling bad about it, you decided to do something about it. What was that turning point for you that led you to make that decision to do something instead of just sitting on your porch?
Well, that would have been my wife kicking me in the butt. Yeah.
Great.
if she hadn't come out on that porch that day and I'm sitting there crying and wailing about my future and my family's ruined and, everything was going to go to pot. She said, no, it's not, because you're not that kind of guy. And she convinced me. And so thank God I had her. And we bought a computer that I managed to pay for because I decided, by the way, to become self-employed and started a school of my own.
Oh, wow.
Which was an academy of performing arts with drama and music and dance. And I had 5 teachers working for me. And it turned out that was a blessing in disguise. Fantastic. And I became a much happier person because I had my own school that didn't have to worry about being told what to do. And I don't like to be told what to do, obviously.
So where do people find this website you've been describing? What would the website address be for that website?
MD, as in Macular Degeneration, support.org.
So mdsupport.org. So if you want some great resources, articles, places to go, links, etc., for support for people with macular degeneration and their families, make sure to go to mdsupport.org.
Thank you.
Now, Dan, I also noticed something interesting about you, that you're also the founding director of the International Low Vision Support Group. So tell our listeners, what's that? What's the International Low Vision Support Group all about?
Well, it started because I realized that there were a lot of people not getting this information that I had been putting on the web for the last 20 years or so. And this was in 2008. And I thought, this is not fair. There's still a lot of seniors out there like what I was before this who were just sitting on the porch and not knowing where to get information and support. And I said, they need this information. So it occurred to me that I was already guest speaking at 5 different support groups around the Kansas City area on a regular basis. And I thought, why? I'm saying the same thing at all of them. And I said, there is this thing called the internet that I learned about. And so I'm going to use that and find other groups around, and we're going to communicate by the internet. And so I sort of created the first webcasts.
Oh, wow.
These were slideshows with narration, and it was PowerPoint. I used PowerPoint, which I also had to learn how to use that. And then I would send these to leaders of support groups around the country who wanted the same information. They needed help running their programs and providing materials. And I had that stuff right there on my website. So I started producing programs, audio and visual, for these groups. And we now have 225 groups in 13 countries and the United States.
225 groups across the United States and in other countries.
Other American-speaking countries, English-speaking. And that just grew. It just happened because there was a need. And that's kind of been my philosophy of life is if there's a door, go through it. Don't stand around in the hallway because you're not going to be doing anything. Of course, you want to remember to leave that door open in case you want to get back out. And I have had to escape a few times.
So there's these groups that are meeting in person, I guess, in the past and maybe now virtually, all over the Americas, supporting each other in their journey through vision loss.
Essentially, that's it. They are live groups. They have their own programs too. Yeah. But my design was for groups that were having trouble reaching the resources, getting speakers to come in from their little town or from the large town to their little town. And so I bring those speakers and programs to them from the internet, and I supply it to a volunteer leader who has a computer. And that could be a nurse or a retirement community welfare.
Any professional.
Anybody on the staff. It could be them, but we also have volunteers. One of my facilitators of the groups is 95 years old.
Oh, wow.
Her group has 4 little old ladies in it, and they sit around every month, and they listen to my programs on their computer that she has. They go to her apartment. And so then I have another group with about 180 people in it. And they project the thing in an auditorium. This is in Taiwan. And they project it onto a screen in the auditorium and amplify the sound. So they've got a regular production going on with theirs. So anybody can join. Anybody can take advantage of it. And I've also posted all of these programs on my website in the audiovisual library.
Is that the same website you described earlier?
Yes.
So they go to mdsupport.org. Is there a certain place they click on for the low vision support groups?
Just go to Audiovisual Library.
Audiovisual Library.
And they can see all of the presentations that are for the public. I do have some that are private for just the members of the low vision support group.
Right.
Because they're borrowed from places like TED Talks and other websites, conferences where they have guest speakers, and I will go and record them. And so I don't make those public because obviously they're copyrighted.
It sounds like a great resource. So Dan, I know that you're well known in the industry for developing a really interesting model and known as, and I'll repeat this twice for our listeners, it's known as the patient advocacy model. So again, Dan's really well known in the industry for developing this patient advocacy model. So tell our listeners about the patient advocacy model and what's that all about and how will it help them?
I'm wondering what that might be. I have worked on the low vision rehabilitation model. Could that be it?
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Okay. That was a initiative that I got involved in as one of 5 people. All of them were leaders or representatives of the major professional organizations, like the CLVT, Certified Low Vision Therapist organization. Another was from the Academy of Ophthalmology. Another one was from the Academy of Optometry. And we were all put together into a committee, and we worked for a year developing a low vision rehabilitation model, which can be found in our library on the website that explains the whole thing. But it was to show patients and doctors the path that a person who's diagnosed should follow. I don't like to tell people what to do, but in this case, these 5 organizational members decided that this is the way it should be. And if you don't believe people from these academies, then I don't know who else you're going to listen to.
Right.
And so we put it into kind of a circle. When you go to look at the model, you'll see that it's in a circle because this is a vicious circle, I guess, in a nice way. Let's say you get diagnosed. The next step you take along the circle is that you look up a low vision therapist. And then that low vision therapist should send you on to a community organization, because all of these things have their purpose.
Right.
And the community organization helps you with this and that and so on. It takes you all the way around the circle. Now, you could join it at any time on the circle. Let's say you go to an optometrist. Well, he should back up and send you to an ophthalmologist if you need surgery, for example.
Right.
That's on the circle. So you can go back and forth on this circle, but you should stay on the circle and you should reach every one of those goals. Low vision rehabilitation mainly being the one we were talking about, because to get low vision rehabilitation, which means training and daily living skills with low vision, to get that, you need to be referred to from a doctor.
Gotcha.
You can't just go to a low vision therapist. You have to be referred. And if you're not referred, then that person's just going to sit there with all that skill and talent that could be helping you. And so we made sure the doctors heard about this. And we make sure the patients hear about it so they can say to the doctor, hey, I know I'm supposed to go to a rehab therapist now. So now tell me where to go.
So it's almost like this is a stepping stones that people can follow along their journey.
That's exactly what it would be. It tells you where to go next, because the one thing when I left that office after my diagnosis, I wished there was somebody there that would have told me where to go next. And there wasn't anybody there.
Yeah. And that's something we hear all the time, Dan, from people with MACD and their families is they get great, medical care, but the support piece after the diagnosis seems to be a big gap in the industry.
That's right, because, and I don't blame them, the doctors didn't go to medical school to learn to be counselors or cheerleaders or teachers. They want to fix your eyes. That's why they went to medical school. So unless they're a doctor with an ophthalmologist with a university, for example, they will take the time. I can't get the doctor that I started with. I can't get him to shut up. He will bring out the little diagrams, and he's even got a little statue of the eye that I can look at. And I say, Doc, I got to go. I got things to do today. And all he wants to do is teach me. So that's the kind of doctor you want to have. But that's not traditional. That's not to be expected from our doctors. We think of them as mechanics. We don't ask the mechanics for personal advice.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I never thought of it that way.
But the doctor should send you to somebody who can give you that personal advice. And that's why we created this rehab model, so that the doctor is aware that, there is a next step here that I should send this person to. And we hope that they're following that. So
you're on a journey. Here's some recommended next steps for you after my office.
They should say, I don't have the answer, but here's where you can go to find it.
That's a great suggestion. So I know that you'd mentioned kind of this stepping stone or this roadmap, and I know that you wrote a book, which I found really fascinating, The First Year, Age-Related Macular Degeneration, an Essential Guide for the Newly Diagnosed. So I thought, what a great idea to give people a guide. Like, okay, you've been diagnosed. Now what? Which sounds like it's really mirroring your experience. So when we hear about this book, The First Year, Age-Related Macular Degeneration, can you give our listeners 1 or 2 tips from the book that you think would be most important for them to know?
Yeah, that book was, I was commissioned to write that by a publisher who had a series called The First Year. Oh. And they had a different book for every disease that's common.
What a great idea.
Like diabetes and, irritable bowel syndrome. And they wanted somebody to write a book on macular degeneration. So they got a hold of me because I had all that stuff they knew about. And basically, the book was derived mostly from the contents of the MD Support website, which, as I said, was over 1,000 pages. So I just condensed it and put it into a 358-page book. And I tried to address the 10 questions. You said tips, but there are 10 questions that a person asks every time I get a phone call, and I do have a helpline, so I'm talking to people all the time, and the questions are addressed in this book, all 10 of them. And so I think probably that's what they'll learn from it, is the answer to their 10 questions. Do you have time for me to just read them real quick?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, what is it? There's the first question. What is AMD, or what is MacD?
Yeah.
How did I get it? The next question is, what should I expect? The next thing they'll ask is, what can I do to improve my vision? And then they'll ask, how can I live successfully with visual impairment? That's the big one. Okay, I know what I've got. I know you can't do anything about it. Now, how can I live with it? What types of doctors should I be seeing? They don't know that.
Right.
What kinds of surgeries or interventions are available? Can they operate on my eye, for example? What treatments are there? Potential cures? What are those? What are my rights? If this person is still employed, do I have rights, for example, as a visually impaired person? Should I join a clinical trial? That's becoming a big one right there that they want in. And finally, where can I find more help?
Where can I find more help?
This book, I'm not here to sell the book, but it does have the answers to those questions. And it's got all the resources in it. So, and you can get it real cheap on Amazon now. It's been on there for 10 years now, so 14 years now. And so you can get them used for about $5. Or you can go to the website and all the information is there, but you're going to have to search through the website.
So for those of you listening, make sure to check it out. The First Year, Age-Related Macular Degeneration, an Essential Guide for the Newly Diagnosed. And one thing I love about what the questions you just asked, Dan, was I think I've always said that education reduces fear.
Exactly.
And that if you can get educated, informed, right, then the fear is going to be reduced because you'll now know what to expect. You'll now know what doctor should I see. And so I think those are some really great questions. You agree with that idea about reduction of fear or having hope?
It's fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
I call that the monster behind the door, because when I was a child, there was a monster in my closet. I knew there was. I never saw him or heard him, but I knew he was there.
I thought it was just in my closet, Dan.
No, I had him too.
You had him too. Boy, that guy travels around, doesn't he?
I think it was Santa Claus. I thought it was a gorilla because I had seen King Kong.
Oh, there you go.
When you see King Kong at the age of 6 years old, and I'm talking the original King Kong, the really scary one with Fay Ray.
Scary one, yeah.
Yeah. That gorilla followed me through my entire childhood, and he lived in my closet. So I was terrified of him until one day I went over there and opened the door, and there was nothing there. I got the courage to find out there wasn't really anything in there. What I did find, however, was this little skinny monkey that I used to play with. I maybe that's why I'm afraid of monkeys. Now that I think of it,
back to the accordion thing again. Yeah,
and he's playing the accordion. No, I did see that, and I thought, well, that gorilla is just a skinny little monkey. And I thought, oh, that's a good philosophy for the rest of my life. Have the courage and the ambition to go and find out about it. Don't just cower on the front porch. Get out there and do something about it. And if you can't do it yourself, find somebody who can help you. And your gorilla can be a skinny monkey too. I think I'm gonna write a country song with that lyric.
Yeah, I can imagine that as a great country song.
It'll be great. I'll work on
that. A little
that.
Skinny monkey. There you go. No, that's great stuff. And I think that, taking the mystery out of it, taking the misunderstandings out of it, I think that's pretty important stuff. So, as you know, my MacDLife is empowered by the Support Sight Foundation. So, how do you see us working together? Your organization and our organization, there's millions of people out there that need help, due to this awful disease. So any thoughts about how the Support Sight Foundation and your organizations could work together?
Well, we're actually doing that, and I don't want to let the entire cat out of the bag, but there are at least 5 major macular degeneration associations and 501c3s in this country. I was one of the first, and then I became partnered with the other one, Macular Degeneration Foundation. And then we started finding the others, and we all started seeing each other at conventions and conferences. And we found out we liked each other, but we realized we're all doing the same thing. And some of us are reinventing the wheel. We're spinning our wheels, so to speak. And so we have come up with this opportunity. Now, like I said, I don't want to say too much about it, but an opportunity to form a portal that will lead people to all of our organizations, depending on what they're looking for. Make it easier.
What a great idea.
To find us. And I don't know if I should say any more about it or not, but it's coming up. We're very excited about it. And supportsite.org is also involved in this.
Great.
The AMDF, American Macular Degeneration Foundation, Bright Focus is involved in this. AMD Support, of course, and Prevent Blindness. I work for both of those, and they're both involved in this as well.
Wow.
So that a person can go to one website and find all of us.
What a great idea that is.
Well, it'll make it easier. Right now, we're building the airplane while we're flying it at this point, which is essentially what I've been doing that for the last 25 years anyway.
So would people stay tuned for details? Would they go to mdsupport.org to learn when that will happen and as all that comes together?
It'll probably be announced widely.
Okay.
Where the last meeting we had was to decide how we're going to put this word out. And I think we all agree that obviously one of the best ways is to everybody, all of the organizations, put this on their websites with a link to that site because we all belong to it.
Yeah, well, we definitely would be glad to do that.
Yeah, so go to any reputable site that has to do with macular degeneration. And if you see the link to this new site, click on it and that'll take you there.
Great. So one other question for you, Dan. You know, on MyMacDLife, as we call our show, we talk often about there's a lot of myths. There's a lot of misinformation out there about macular degeneration, as we call it MacD. So in your mind, what would you say are some of the, one or two most prevalent myths and misinformation about this devastating disease for people and their families? What myths or misinformation would you like to clear up?
There's at least three that I've been fighting since I first learned anything about this at all. The biggest one is that blindness can result from MacD. It can't, and it won't.
It can't. Okay.
That's the myth.
C-A-N-T, can't.
Exactly, with the apostrophe.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. We have, over the past decade, managed to get that out of the language. It used to be, we used to hear macular degeneration is the leading cause of blindness in senior citizens. Well, that's absolutely untrue because it doesn't lead to blindness. And we have fought that long and hard. And now you rarely see that anymore. What you see is macular degeneration is the leading cause of low vision.
Low vision, not blindness.
Or visual impairment, but not blindness, because we don't lose our vision. You see, there's people walking around you all day that have MD or MacD, and you don't know it.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
They've learned to adapt to it. They have learned to deal with it. They're leading very successful lives with this condition. And so you'd never become a totally dependent person. And then I learned, well, even if you're blind, you're not totally dependent because you can do without your eyes, and I actually did the research on this. 99% of what we do in our daily lives, we can do without looking.
Wow.
The only reason we look is because we can.
Because it's a habit.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to see. We watch what we're doing, but we can do it without watching. And so that's what we have to learn, and that's what all the organizations are leading toward. That's what low vision rehabilitation is all about, how to live your life without. But anyway, that was just the first one.
The first one is the blindness myth, and the two others
are? The next one is the myth that there are two different expressions of the disease MacD. That dry and wet are two different conditions.
Yeah, dry and wet.
That's misunderstood. They are not the two different conditions. They're the same condition. They are both macular degeneration. The wet form happens to be an advanced development that stems from macular degeneration, where the blood vessels decide to grow and go in there and bring nutrition to the dying cells.
Right.
But that's not a disease by itself. You can't have wet macular degeneration unless you started with dry macular degeneration, because that's the general thought now.
So they're the same.
Wet comes from dry, but essentially when you inject the new drugs into the wet MDI, you have taken it back to the dry form of macular degeneration because you've stopped the blood vessels. So it's hard to explain that to people who are just starting.
Right.
But that's a misunderstanding that needs to be better taught, I think. And finally, you cannot reverse macular degeneration.
Not reversible.
You cannot reverse it with supplementation. You can't reverse it with electrical stimulation or with eye exercises or any other therapies. There is no therapy or treatment that's going to reverse this disease. And it really bothers me when I see that advertised.
Right.
That such and such is going to reverse your disease. It may improve it temporarily.
Improve it, but not reverse it.
It may improve your vision, but it's not going to reverse the disease itself. If you could reverse the disease, that means you have cured aging.
And the first person that does that,
then you got something.
Yeah, then you really got something.
So those are the three things that I'm always having to explain, and I wish people would just quit telling folks this.
Yeah.
Think of some other way to raise your money or sell your product.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think those are some three really good ones. Well, Dan, you are a fountain of information. I love your energy and your passion, and I really appreciate what you've really done and you probably don't think about this, but I mean, think about the hundreds and thousands and perhaps millions of people whose lives you've touched through your work. Have you ever sat back on the porch one day and thought about that?
I do think about that, but I can't dwell on it because there's still a lot of work to do. So what I end up dwelling on is the people I haven't been able to reach yet. I would love to just say, there, now, I fixed it. But that's not going to happen.
Well, I really appreciate everything that you're doing for people out there and their families. I really appreciate all your work and your efforts. And thank you so much for being on the show today. You're absolutely fascinating. And maybe we'll have you back again sometime in the future. Would you be willing to do that for us?
I would love to. I do want to close with information and human interaction. Those are the things that are vital to maintaining the quality of life when we're dealing with low vision. So in addition to MD support, several other top-notch organizations exist for the same purpose that I told you about a minute ago, including supportsite.org and what you're doing here with the podcasts. And it's through organizations like ours and the cooperation and now that's happening among them, patients can not only survive vision loss, but they could flourish in spite of it. So I hope this podcast will lead many of them to the services that we provide, and I appreciate you inviting me here today.
Well, thank you, Dan. Appreciate your time, and keep doing the great work. We appreciate you.
I intend to. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
MyMacDLife.
MyMacDLife. MyMacDLife.
Hi, everybody. This is Christine Petty, and I am coming to you from my cozy little studio apartment nestled in a tiny nook in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of New York City. So if you hear sirens or motorcycles or very loud cursing, welcome to my world. I am a radio host and an actress and a singer and a voiceover artist, and that's what I do for a living. I want to introduce myself because I'm going to be stopping by occasionally during these podcasts to share with you my adventures as I transition into a world of visual challenges. I think I'll sort of just start and use today's segment to give you a little history. I started as a very little girl with, as soon as I was old enough to convey information to my parents, with very, very, very nearsighted eyes. My lenses were probably at least 1/4 of an inch thick, easily. And I had these little pink and white striped cat glasses that I used to wear. And I hated them because the rings around my lenses made my eyeballs look so tiny. And as a result, I just hated the frames. Poor cat glasses, it's not your fault. But even to this day, I can't wear cat glasses, even though they're back in fashion. I wore glasses till I was in the 8th grade, and then I got hard contact lenses. Yes, kids, contact lenses used to be hard. And in college, I got soft contact lenses. And I had a series of complications. I had a detached retina in my 20s. I had strabismus surgery because my eye crossed. My eyes don't have equal strength. My dominant eye is my left eye. That's the eye that I read out of and focus out of. I can't really focus independently out of the right eye. And so I have this eye turn. So I had a strabismus surgery to correct that, had a detached retina in my 20s, had cataract surgery in my 40s, and then had 2 detached retinas in my dominant eye in a month. And all of these involve silly little anecdotal stories, which I'll get to in the next episode of Adventures with Christine. Oh, but the point is that at this stage, after all of that, I then, of course, had glaucoma issues. And I've had, I think, 2 or 3 glaucoma surgeries. So I've been under the knife, and I've had the pressures of losing almost all my vision in my dominant eye. And so I had to then compensate and use this less than optimal right eye. And I was so miserable about that, just so miserable about it, until, of course, that eye started to go. Now I am navigating through the world with this diminished eye, which is steadily having more and more diminished vision. So this is my challenge. I live alone, and, I'm an actress. So these are all things I'll touch upon as we move forward with this podcast. It's my goal to talk about the challenges and to sympathize with you and everybody when it comes to the things that we are struggling with, but also to understand the things that we can rise above, and to, at all costs, laugh about a lot of this, because, come on, some of it is pretty funny. It is. And if you don't find it funny, stick with me, kid. So that's who I am, Christine Petty, who will come to you from my little studio apartment most of the time. I might do some things walking the streets of Manhattan as I learn how to do that with the cane. But I'm going to stop in briefly and, as I said earlier, share my adventures as I navigate through the world with diminished vision and try to accomplish more and understand more about myself and the world throughout. I know it's going to be a challenge, and maybe you'll help me and maybe I'll help you. Let's see what happens.
Hey folks, may 2021 be joyful, healthful, peaceful, hopeful, and kindful. That's our mantra. This year, more than ever, we have to come together. We need to love each other more and hate each other less. So here's what we're asking you to do. We couldn't make it easier. Pick up your phone, record yourself saying, May 2021 be joyful, healthful, peaceful, hopeful, and kindful. It's that easy. Post that on all your social media. Share it on all your social media. Hashtag FullHearts2021. This is your chance to be featured on this show. We're active on all social media except for Twitter. Thanks for joining in.
So Donna, understand for the Spiro assistive technology piece today, we've got some really fascinating technology to talk about. So I'm just curious, what is it this time?
Well, Shawn, it's always fascinating.
It is.
It's good stuff. This week is the Clearview Go. That's capital G, capital O.
I love the name of that. It sounds like you can just take it and you can go. Is that a good guess?
Shawn, you are so smart. You're just always getting it.
Well, I'm not the co-host of a podcast for no reason, I gotta say.
So yes, this category that the Clearview Go falls under is called portable assistive technology. So it's meant to take on the go. It's durable, foldable, has all the aspects of like a more of a sturdy kind of a desktop, more permanent kind of reader and magnifier. But it's sleek, and you can throw it in a case, and you can pack it up, throw it in the car, and take it to see the family.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. Or you can take it to school. There's all kinds of uses. So it really is move it around different rooms in your house, kind of like a laptop.
That's great. So listeners, listen up. If you're ready to go, let's go.
All right, Well, good afternoon. My name is Bill Kilroy. I'm Vispero's Senior Sales Director for the Northeast, and I'm joined by my colleague, Mike Wood, Strategic Accounts Manager for Education for Vispero.
Hey, everybody.
Mike and I are very pleased to be on this podcast, MyMacDLife, and we hope to tell you a little bit more about our organization and the types of tools we produce. Vispero is the world's largest assistive technology for the visually impaired. Our field of specialty is assistive technology. In our world, for Vispero, that means serving people with our products who are blind or low vision. Throughout this podcast, we hope to highlight key products in our line that can enhance people's lives, and we look forward to speaking
out
with
there
you.
talking about
Well,
living
today's
life
featured
with
product that
macular
Mike and I will be discussing
stories,
is a device
science, and the
called
latest
the
research.
Clearview Go.
Listen wherever you get your
The
podcasts.
Clearview Go is
To join
from
the
our
community, visit
Optelec division,
MyMacDLife.org.
and it is a piece of low vision equipment that falls into the category of desktop video magnifier. But unlike a traditional desktop video magnifier, the Clearview Go is unique in the sense that it is a device that can travel with the user. So it is a foldable video magnifier that can be plugged into a wall, it can run off of battery, and it can give a user access to information that's on their desk, up on a whiteboard or blackboard, or outside, looking out of a window. Or if they're using it for personal use, they can rotate a camera that can look at them, and they can do everything from applying makeup to, checking moles, those types of things. It is a piece of video magnification equipment. So the user will have a monitor facing them. Behind the monitor is a camera and lighting system that looks down at a platform where their print material or object will be magnified. So you can raise the magnification anywhere from 2 times to 32 times to get it to a comfortable viewing for reading, etc. This is a device that has a 5-hour battery life. It has for high contrast, it has 35 different high contrast color modes, and it is something that once you're done with it, if you're at school, for example, you can pack it up, take it back home, use it at home to do your homework, pack it back up, bring it the next day to school, and be on your way. Mike, you see these products a lot in education. Tell me, how do people use them in your world?
Yeah, absolutely. This has been a top seller for me in the education market. The neat thing is it comes in 2 screen sizes. So you've got a 15-inch and a 17-inch. And so depending on what the need of the individual is, you've got those options. But the students love it. It's portable. I think you had mentioned it's only around 10 pounds. So it's definitely, pretty easy. It comes with a rolling case as an option, which would allow you to transport it even easier in between classes. But the other thing is the quality of this device is top notch. The high definition camera is super great quality, and the magnification on distance on this is spectacular. And the other thing is the quality of it, as far as, the robustness of the product. I travel with my unit, and prior to COVID, I was traveling a lot, and I was taking this thing and I was packing it up in my luggage, and it has been great. It's really taken a good beating.
Well, and that's what I think you'll find with all of our products. I think the key thing is that the assistive technology, number one, do its job, but number two, that it gives you great durability. This is a product, and particularly when it's used, we think of this being used a lot by students, but it can be used by anybody at any point in time. So this can be used at work, it can be used at home, it can be used at school, or wherever. But Mike hits on a great point, which is kids and students are our toughest audience. So if your equipment isn't durable, it's not going to last. And we've had this product out well over a year now, and we've had nothing but great reports back and reviews on this as far as a device that can, fold up, be packed away, taken, set up at home, set up at work, set up at school, and it just keeps working for the user. Mike, any final comments?
Yeah, I was just going to say the other thing I know a lot of individuals like is you have 3 selectable magnification ranges. So if you have a student or an individual that needs to start out at a higher magnification range, you can customize this unit. And you had mentioned those 35 color modes. Everything's customizable. It's super simple and easy to use. Overall, it's a great product.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. To learn more about the Clearview Go, a couple of different ways, you can call us at 1-800-444-4443. and talk to a customer service representative who can send out some information or connect you with a local resource who can potentially show you a device. The other way is to visit us online at www.vispero.com. Thanks very much and have a great afternoon.
So this next segment of the show is something we call Trivia Town. And Dawn and I are co-mayors of Trivia Town, by the way, in case you want to visit. And on this one, Dawn, why don't we do this? Why don't you toss a trivia question my way? What do you got for me today?
Well, this is a really good one that I think smart.
Because you always have great trivia questions.
Well, thank you. I pride myself. This might stump you, Mr. Doyle. What term for a unit of power did James Watt coin? That's not his name. That means name. To help market his steam engines.
So we're asking for a term that James Watt coined to market his steam engines. I remember that when I was a little kid, seeing those steam engines. I mean, the obvious one seems to me like it's too obvious. Is it Watt? Is that a good guess?
Did you want me to repeat that? Is that W-H-A-T or W-A-T-T, Shawn?
Yeah, is it W-A-T-T? I'm going with Watt. That's my scientific best guess answer. That's my final answer, in fact. So what do you think?
Well, that is a darn good guess. And
is it Watt?
I think the audience would agree that you get some credit for that, but the answer is horsepower.
Oh, horsepower. Wow. That's interesting because it makes sense, because if you're marketing steam engines to try to replace a horse, then maybe describe it as, 4 horsepower or 8 horsepower. I mean, that makes so much sense. Horsepower. Interesting. I never knew where that came from, actually.
I'd like to challenge our audience out there, for those of the, engineers and others out there who might know this, because it was James Watt, I am curious if he has credit for watt or wattage or watts, like you mentioned. So we could Google it, and that would be easy, and maybe we'll do that for next time. But if our listeners out there know the answer, maybe they could email us at info@MyMacDLife.org and chime in. What do you think of that, Shawn?
So what you're asking is, what does Watt get credit for? What does Watt get credit for?
Now we're getting a little crazy.
So here's a practical tip for living every day with macular degeneration. It's actually pretty simple, but sometimes people don't think about, is increase task illumination. First of all, there's a lot of great lamps out there, flashlights, illuminated magnifiers, something to think about. Next is a task lamp or even a daylight bulb. So on that document, you'll be able to read much more clearly. And then the last one is to bring your lighting within 1 foot of the printed item that you're trying to read. So I think that'll really make a big difference for you. And so there's a tip for living with macular degeneration, is increasing your task illumination.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We're really glad you're here. Please come back. May 2021 be joyful, healthful, peaceful, hopeful, and kindful.
Yeah, and it's definitely a privilege and a pleasure. And remember, for more information, please go to MyMacDLife.org. We have all sorts of resources and info there for patients who have MacD and their families. And remember to join us next time on MyMacDLife.
This program is empowered by the Support Sight Foundation. The Support Sight Foundation mission is to save sight for millions of people who suffer from age-related macular degeneration, AMD, and lose their precious vision. As a 501c3 public charity, our goal is to provide patient education and access to low vision resources to help individuals, families, and caregivers whose lives are severely impacted by AMD. We place a high priority on connecting with people, their families, and loved ones who live with the daily struggle of impaired vision. The Support Sight Foundation funds innovative research projects conducted by the top scientists in the field who are on a path to discover effective new tools, technology, and treatments for people like you with vision loss. The Support Site Foundation, supportsight.org, supportsight.org, or call us at 888-681-8773 and connect with us on social media. Thank you.
Thanks for being with us on MyMacDLife, the podcast with a vision to bring hope, optimism, perspective, and education to our listeners. For more information and many great, incredible resources, visit MyMacDLife.org. This program is supported by amazing listeners like you. During the season of giving, please consider a donation to keep our mission moving forward. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep living with hope.